This is Betstars and Stripes with Dr. Turf, Ed Wyatt and Alice Gander.
It sure is. Welcome to Betstars and Stripes. Ed White, Dr. Turf and Alice Gander, all in the studio. My name's Teo Pellizzeri, steering the ship with the three wise men that have joined me here. Of course, Betstar have brought back an old favourite with double fixed odds on all Group 1 races this spring. Get on at 8 a.m. race day until they jump with this amazing offer. Why would you bet anywhere else? Gentlemen, Betstars and Stripes is back for another week.
Yes, thanks, Teo. It's great to be back and have Ed and Doc. And it's been an amazing week in sport, but particularly today with San Francisco and the baseball going up 3-0.
Extraordinary results there in Detroit. Detroit, I think, started $1.60 something favourites today for Game 3, but they're in a deep hole now, Ed. They're out of business.
No team has ever come back in a World Series ever from a 3-0 deficit, so we don't think that's probably going to happen. I feel good about one thing and bad about another. Bad, I thought that the rest would help Detroit. That obviously hasn't paid out. But I do feel good. A few weeks ago I said the Giants as a sleeper, as an outsider for the World Series. So I do feel good about that. They've been great. They've been playing team ball. They've been hitting, fielding, some great fielding. And the pitching has been remarkable.
Yeah, two great double plays today. I think they left 12 players on base, 12 runners on base today, Detroit. That's not good.
They're just out of it now. They're dazed, I think. They just cannot get anything going, and all the breaks seem to be going San Francisco's way. Already we've had a ground ball that looked like an easy out, hit a base and fall for a double, a ball up the middle, hit a pitcher on the head and fly into center field for a single, and a broken bat single as well. So everything's going their way.
A little bit of an issue over, it was Pfister, wasn't it?
It was,
who got hit on the head. And then got checked out by both doctors and then pitched brilliantly.
Did you hear the audio? Fox had audio on the mic. The umpire was mic'd up. So they had the conversation. They were saying things like, where are you? What game is this? Game 2, San Francisco. Who are you playing? That sort of thing. It was really
a sophisticated test.
It was, well, I guess so. But it turns out he was cleared afterward as well, too. So one of those lucky things, I suppose. Because that is frightening when that ball flies back and hits a pitcher.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, they're pitching at 91 miles an hour, and it's coming back to you probably with some sauce on top of that. So hitting that on the scone wouldn't be pleasant. And their offense is really struggling for Detroit, isn't it? They just can't score. I mean, they're usually reasonably potent in offense, and they just can't hit a run.
No, they can't, and they sort of held Detroit to only a couple of runs today, and not that many in Game 2 either, I don't think.
Game 2 was a shutout, 2-0.
Yeah, but I'm saying Detroit, San Francisco haven't scored that many runs.
No, other than the 8-3 Game 1. No, you're right.
With Pablo scoring 3 home runs.
Yeah, how about that? Tied a record up there with Babe Ruth and Albert Pujols and Reggie Jackson. So some great names. He's joined it.
He's been pretty good on base too.
He's a good athlete. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
He doesn't look like a good athlete.
No, you look at these big guys, but he's really nimble. He made a great play at third base as well. Yeah. So, no, it's been remarkable. It's been just one of those things where, a team's got, as Al, as you said, has got the momentum. Now they've got the pitching. Now Matt Cain starts tomorrow. He's the ace of the staff, arguably. So they've already beaten Verlander once. So, I mean, there's not much more that Detroit can do, really, other than maybe get some luck.
So this is the market, the way it's set up. So game 4 is tomorrow, as you touched on, Ed. San Francisco are playing away. They're $2.10. Detroit is still marginally favourite. They're $1.77. But in terms of winning the World Series, it's never been done. The Giants, $1.07. Detroit, $8.50. And so we've actually added a bit of interest in the markets as well. So you can pick
$2.
No, $2 faves on that.
But I opened 300 accounts and put $50 on all.
Well, what we have done is got correct score. So San Francisco to win 4-0 is $2. For them to win 4-1 is $4. For San Francisco to win 4-2 is $5. For Detroit to win 4-3 is $8.50, and then for San Francisco to win 4-3 is $12.
Okay, 4-1.
But you're saying
possible.
The number one pitcher is pitching for Detroit tomorrow, so you think they'll just sweep them?
I think it's going to be very difficult, Detroit. But it is baseball, quirky, funny things happen. Bounces go the right way tomorrow, and they win a game. So Detroit or San Francisco to win 4-1 is not a bad option in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they'll sweep them. To be really
honest,
I just think momentum's just an amazing thing in sport, and I just think the wheel nuts have completely come off for Detroit. Detroit.
Good analogy from Motor City. I like that. That works.
Well, there you go. I just landed on my feet with that one. But and I just think to try and turn that round and try and find form at such a late stage of a series, I just think it'll be too hard for them.
Yep, going to be hard.
When's the season start? When's week 1?
April.
So they play a 6-month season.
They get very little time off. I don't know if you've seen any of that Being Liverpool documentary show. The Liverpool players meet the Red Sox players in one of the things, and the guys explain, the Red Sox players telling them how many days off he has. It's like August we have 2 days off. September, July we have 1 day off. It's unbelievable much.
When they go to a city, and they play 3 times.
3, even 4 sometimes.
How many pitches would they take with them for those? How many are they allowed in the bullpen? Is there any limit to it?
I don't know what the limit is. 12 maybe in the bullpen, and then some other pitchers as well. So they got a fair few arms there. That's for sure.
Speaking of round 1, and I guess before we get to round 1 of the NBA, which starts very soon, David Stern announced this week that he'll be retiring as the commissioner of the NBA, and I think he's retiring at the end of 2014 season, which will give him 30 years in the chair.
Huge.
And his
huge impact that man made. And I know he's been kooky, and he's presided over 4 lockouts and 6 franchise relocations. But the TV deal when he took over in '84 was $22 million. Games were on tape delay. Finals games were on tape delay. $930 million, I believe, is what the new deal is worth.
I don't want to take anything away from him, okay? But in '84, he had the influx of Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. I mean, they came a few years prior, obviously, but he had them as part of the guys on the court. He had Michael Jordan would have been there or thereabouts, sort of starting.
Jordan obviously helped immensely, without a doubt. But the league marketed very smartly this idea of focusing on superstars and things like that. And I think David Stern, and I will say the last few years, I think he's gotten a little bit carried away. This new thing where he's no celebration before the tip off, that kind of thing. He gets these little bees in his bonnet. But one that worked was the dress code when he perceived that the whole gangster influence was getting out of control, and that season ticket holders and big money people didn't like players walking around with tons of jewelry and sideways baseball hats and all that, and he instituted a dress code.
So I don't have
Caught a lot of heat, but I think that was a great move.
So I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with sterilizing a game too much. And so the celebration and that theatre, whether we like it or not, a lot of people enjoy watching that. Either because they love watching that or because they hate watching that, therefore they want to watch that. And I just think that you can get a little bit too pedantic and sterilise a game a little bit too much.
He did make a great statement about 4 years ago after a series of player infractions, where he did ask all the players when they went out at night socialising to keep their weapons at home. Which, that's a big call. I can't imagine Andrew Demetriou asking the AFL players,
keep your weapons.
When you go to the boutique or the motel or whatever, just keep your...
Have any of you guys read the Dennis Rodman autobiography? He talks about spending a night in a car park, I think at the back of a ute or something like that, with some shotgun planted in his mouth and carrying on about it. So out of context in the AFL, I'm not convinced out of context necessarily in some of these US sports.
Was he wearing a wedding dress at the time?
Yeah, potentially.
Probably.
Potentially.
But he's been remarkable for the game and the draft lottery and all these things that have become... incredibly popular. A lot of Stern and his crew, is the people he works with, are responsible for.
Well, Al, I know you love your NBA. You've got 3 games kicking off the season on Wednesday night, Wednesday morning. Is it Wednesday morning our time?
So we've got the Celtics Miami is the first game, and Miami $1.29, Celtics $3.75. This will be an interesting game because Ray Allen has I was going to say defected, but that's a little bit harsh. I'm sure he wanted to stay at the Celtics, but they couldn't come to terms, and has actually gone over to Miami. So he'll be playing at home against the Celtics, and that'll be a really interesting clash.
Yeah, it certainly will be. I mean, he's going to add shooting to that team, which guys like Mike Miller have done in the past, and also Rashard Lewis is another guy they've got. The Heat look strong. The Heat look very, very good again. And you're right. It's I don't think it's a coincidence that they've sort of set this up as a tip-off game. They like to do that on the Christmas game and things like that, where they can put 2 teams up to have a real storyline.
Can you imagine how unstoppable they'll be? I mean, if he's still got his eye in and he's still shooting the ball as well as he has historically, I mean, imagine trying to guard Wade and LeBron, and they've just got a spot-up shooter like Ray Allen just sitting there at the three-point line who is unstoppable when he gets on fire.
That's why guys like Craig Hodges and Steve Kerr were so successful with the Bulls. You got Jordan, you got Pippen, and then bang, you got this little guy in the corner that just doesn't miss.
Yeah, and then you got Dallas going to Los Angeles to take on the Lakers. The Lakers are $1.21, Dallas $4.50. Dwight Howard playing, is he, Ed?
Dwight Howard should play. I think he played one game already. But the big news there is Nowitzki for Dallas. He's out 6 to 8 weeks with an injury. So I think Dallas is going to be in a world of hurt. They've sort of remade the roster. They were hoping to get Howard and Darren Williams in the offseason. Didn't happen. I think they're going to really struggle.
Yep. And then the Wizards take on the Cavaliers, and we haven't got a market up on that,
which is probably a good decision.
But a market will come up on that very soon. I'll also just quickly read you through the NBA championship marks. Miami's still favourite there, $3.20. The Lakers $4.15 into $4. Oklahoma $5. The Bulls have drifted. They're out to 17, along with San Antonio. I think it's too short for San Antonio. I mean, they're only a year older this year, and they couldn't get the job done last year. So
might be right.
Yes, I think that's probably a little bit too short. The Celtics 21. The Clippers are going to have an interesting year. I'm looking forward to watching them play. They will be $29 and then $34 the rest of the field, basically.
And we should mention that James Harden was traded today from the Oklahoma City Thunder. They had that great nucleus of Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka, Russell Westbrook, and then Harden as sort of the sixth man of the year last year. But he had a contract issue. They couldn't come to an agreement, so they pulled the pin early. They've traded him to the Houston Rockets. Get a couple guys back who can play. Kevin Martin's a good scorer. Jeremy Lamb's a young rookie from University of Connecticut. So I think they're going to be – I think that's okay for the Thunder, but obviously a huge move and a huge gamble moving Harden on.
Excuse my naivety, but trading – 3 days before the start of the season.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
Is there a limit?
I'll tell you the issue. The issue is that they didn't want it to be a distraction. They didn't want it to go through the whole season like the Dwight Howard thing was last year. Yep. They've decided to cut their losses. It's a very small market team, Oklahoma City, and I think they're really careful about overspending. They'll be criticized, but I think it's probably a decent move.
Right at the start of the season, there's no risk with intellectual property switching sides.
Great question.
That briefly before the start of the campaign?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, all those Harden jerseys now will have to be Houston Rocket Harden jerseys. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I guess because he's a free agent to be, there may not be an issue. I don't actually know the trade deadline, I'll be honest with you, but it is pretty strange to see this deal happen, especially with such a high-profile guy this close to the season.
Yep. I guess maybe before we go to a break, we've got, as a tribute to Dave and Stern, we have got some audio, so maybe we'll listen to some of the audio.
Well, I got to meet him a couple years ago. I was in Portland, coincidentally, just covering a Trailblazer game.
Is he a little man? He looks like a little man on TV.
Well, it was funny. I was at the game, and everyone was eating their lunch, and then everyone ordered dinner. Everyone sat it down and ran in this room. The cameras came from everywhere. Stern had just come to town because his quote was, "Portland needed a hug." They're having some bad times. They needed a hug. And I went, okay. I talked to a girl there and said, any chance I could get a one-on-one? I played up the Australia card, g'day, mate, that kind of thing. At halftime, they escorted me down into the Rose Garden Arena, sat me down next to David Stern and said, Commissioner Stern will give you 5 minutes of his time. So I asked him a little bit about the NBL in Australia and would there be any interest in the NBA dealing with the NBL. And Australia has a very strong basketball culture, a very small country of only about 21 million with China in the doorstep, but sometimes you feel a little bit overlooked, is it?
Yes, as you can say, Luke Longley or Shenzer, I must tell you that Australia has a very strong sports culture.
Yes.
And we follow the NBL. I guess I went to an NBL championship many years ago, probably 15 years ago, but we understand it, and you go up, you go down, but it's fun to be fellow travelers in an exciting basketball world.
And you think at some point possibly a league like the NBL could be brought under the NBA umbrella?
It's down the road, and we're not involved in a colonial conquest here. We actually learn more, and we're not looking to plant our flag all over the world. But that said, we have something called the NBA Development League, which is a very good league. And I think its quality of basketball is probably about the same as the NBL. Maybe the NBL is a little bit better. And, I think we're going to find some way to tie together